Good day, Chairmen of the boards. I'm glad to be back. I was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin last week.
Good power tools in Milwaukee, I hear.
Yeah, and Harley Davidson, if you're one of those guys. And it was wonderful. Got to interview the great Daryl Shermer from Phil Collins and Genesis. And boy, what a guitar player. Played on so many hit songs and kind of unbelievable. He's like pretty much in every one of those Phil Collins songs from the first record in the early 80s. I think 81 was the first record for Phil Collins. And so he's been through it. He's been in it and had us to his house and got to hang out with him. It was really a lot of fun. So stay tuned for that episode over on the Vertex Effects YouTube channel. But today we have a great variety of topics. One that includes the FOMO of boutique pedals. For those of you unfamiliar with what that means, it is not an expletive. It just means fear of missing out. I think that's called an acronym. Is that what that's called?
Yeah. Feels right.
Yeah, feels like that's right.
Yep.
If memory serves. And so we're going to talk about that phenomenon. And I definitely think that there are a lot of boys and girls that cried tone in our, we know one of those people, if we're not one of those, that is always wanting the new thing. It's the best thing that's out there. This is why I'm still proposing and nobody's taking me up on it. Needs to start a YouTube channel called like 1 year review or 5 year review, where you don't review anything that's older than 5 years, because some pedals, and I can even say this about my own, have disappeared into obscurity by that point in their life. And so it's interesting to see the things that everybody was talking about 5 years ago and now are completely irrelevant in the space of guitar pedals. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the JHS Notadumble release. Obviously, we're a little late to the party on that, but I think it's an interesting phenomenon what he's doing with the DIY kits that are kind of not DIY kits, but has all of the feelings of DIY kits and has a really great pedal at the end of it and something that's certainly unique in this particular offering. And we're also going to talk about some other new products like the Walrus updates to the Canvas line isolators and DIs that they've released. They're really cool. They've updated the stereo version. They've got a miniature mono version that they've released.
Power
so
supply.
More cool stuff from them. Did they also do something with the power supply?
Yeah, they did an HP plus. So like the size of their 15, they did it in a 15 plus. So it has more like 3.
It has like
3 amp.
Okay, so
yeah.
you could do multiple quad cortexes.
Yep, you could.
Needed.
Wow.
Easy. And additional pedals. I think it's like 5.
So 15. So it has 15 outputs.
No.
And 3 of those.
It's the same size as the 15 that they have, but it's like
I see.
5 or 6 9-volt outputs and 3 amp variable voltage outputs. It's really cool. I have one here.
Wow. All right. Well, then that's fantastic. They sent you one, I'm presuming, because you are the Omilion. Well, that's fantastic. I think that's really cool because it's, as people may know, and I know we're getting into this a little early, but even if you have something, and this is a confusion that I'm sure you guys get all the time. I know I get this question, is that, well, my pedal only draws 100 milliamps. I can't put 300 or 3 amps, which is 3,000 milliamps, into my 100 milliamp output pedal or 100 milliamp draw pedal. And that there's a confusion there that's somehow tied to the voltage. It is not. It is completely separate. The pedal only draws what it needs. So if you only had 1 quad cortex on your rig and not 3 like Brian, you could just use one of those outputs for the quad cortex and then all of the other outputs, even though they're 3 amps, to power all of the individual pedals. We'll get into that more as we go. But any just quick words, quick messages, PSAs, announcements to the listeners before we dive in to the topic of the FOMO of boutique pedals. Grant O'Brien, floor is yours.
I don't have any specific messages. I mean, I'm curious and excited to get into this. What is sure to be a very spicy topic. Things are going to get heated when we're talking about boutique pedals versus not so boutique pedals. So I'm just saying, just strap in, get ready. I think we're ready to get there. Brian,
I mean, we're halfway through my wife being pregnant, so that's great. That's very exciting. I'm having a boy, a third kid, so we're having a boy. But no,
congrats.
Is this Brian Jr.?
So I decided to rename my son. He'll be stereo left, and my son will be stereo right.
I thought you were going to say Ibanez. We should take suggestions.
No, that's my daughter's name.
Suggestion.
That's my daughter's middle name is Ibanez. No, nothing.
But no N-E-A or no N-E-A, because that's the controversial letter.
Yeah. But yeah, no, nothing for me. Just business as usual for here. But I'm excited to dive in, as Grant said, to this spicy topic, because
spicy.
I will say it does get spicy. I think there are some people that the keyboard warriors of FOMO pedals. It's gonna be interesting. So yeah, I'm ready to dive in.
All right. Well, with that, we will dive in, and I think that this is a really interesting phenomenon that we see in certainly, like, I was going to say message board, but we really don't have message boards anymore. It's like in the Facebook group, gear page, Instagram culture. There is a build up to a new product. There is the ownership of YouTube for a period of time, usually days to weeks. Everybody in the world knows about it. And then there's this contingency of folks that buy all of these items, hype it up. It's amazing. It's the best XYZ I've ever played. And then invariably you see hundreds of them used on Reverb, eBay, Craigslist, Sweetwater Gear Exchange. And within a year, this pedal is nowhere to be found on a pedalboard rig. One thing that I would like to talk about that sort of helps support this is, do you ever see any patterns of the things that actually last beyond that sort of really fast arc? Because if we're looking at it from a graph perspective, a lot of them, and I'll try to synthesize this for people that are listening. The graph, basically, if you're looking at the y-axis, it's just like this meteoric rise, and then it immediately falls off a cliff within, if they're lucky, maybe a couple of months. And I'll admit that from a manufacturing standpoint, sometimes it's hard to predict that, because usually when we would release a new pedal, all of our dealers want to buy it. Because there's the most volume of sales in sort of those initial 4 to 6 weeks. And then you get to see what the staying power is following that first 4 to 6 weeks, like whether this is something that people are interested in and they're willing to recurringly buy this product, or whether you sort of reach the people that were inclined to buy this thing and you have a really hard time reinventing customers for that product. And some of that has to do with the product, and some of that has to do with you as a brand and the way you've positioned it and the type of support that you've given it. And I would say this, and I don't know if you guys agree, that manufacturers have a lot less patience now than they maybe once did for these sorts of things, that they're willing to very quickly throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. And pivot onto something new instead of investing deeply in products that they believe in. And that's not to say that all of them don't believe in what they're selling, but I do think there's a tendency now more than ever to try to put stuff out kind of fishing for a hit and hoping that something hits, and then preferring to cut your losses by blowing it out on musician's friend's stupid deal of the day or some sort of like discounted blowout sale through a major retailer to recoup the expense of the remaining inventory so that they can take that and then reinvest in the next product, you know, the next hit. And that seems to be a really common release arc for a lot of products these days. But I think inadvertently it trains people to be in the mindset of this sort of release schedule.
Yeah.
And they're also not going to be the loyal customers that I think are ultimately what really survive a brand. You know, they really help survive a brand when you have people that are deeply embedded with what you do and who you are and the products that you make. And it can be hard to have that same relationship with the vendor or with the manufacturer if the identity is constantly variable. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I mean, I can definitely understand it in the sense for, especially if you're a slightly larger company where you can, you know, let's say come up with an idea on day one. So, yep, that's a good idea. We should manufacture it. We should design it. We should manufacture it and release it and see what happens. Like you said, maybe it's a hit and maybe it'll make us a lot of money. But if it doesn't, we're able to release it so quickly and not sink all these costs into it that it's not a huge loss. And so then we can try the next idea or an iteration of that first one. And then I see, I only have so much experience in this arena. I've only ever done this type of thing, manufacturing, designing products for Goodwood. I haven't done this for multiple companies across multiple, industries. So we take a long time to develop a product. And I don't want that to come across as sounding like we don't want to rush the process. We think of every detail. It's just our capacity is what it is. And it takes a long time to make a product. So like right now, I've been working on a new product idea. We're getting closer to launch, but we've been at this for 2 years, and that's pretty normal for us. Like 2 years to develop a pretty, straightforward, well-working product. And so I don't have the luxury of giving this thing a 3-month shot to see if it works. Like this thing has to sell. That's the only option. And so we have to kind of think it through and so I would love to have the luxury of being able to turn a product around in 3 months and see if it hits or not. But unfortunately, it's just not the case. And so as for people being trained to wait for the release, I would definitely agree. And I think even if we look back to 2016, 2018, somewhere around like pre-COVID, the amount of pedals from, let's say, the last 10 years that have stuck around versus the pedals that I still love and use from early 2000s. And I'm mainly thinking overdrives, some modulation, analog type pedals. I just go back to the classics, and because those are the ones I know and love, but there are very few pedals in the last 10 years that are staples and my absolute all-time favorites. And
take reissue stuff out of that, and that might even shrink the list more. Yeah.
Exactly. And so that's where I don't do this on purpose. I'm not, it's 10 years old. I don't want to like that. I'm going to find an old version. It's just probably partly to do with what I know and love. A lot of that was formed 15, 20 years ago. But it is, I find it a little bit frustrating when I see a product that I feel like was rushed and it was just put out to get some sales. And I'm making assumptions when I say that. I understand that. But companies that just pump products out, release it, move on, it disappears from their website, from existence, and then they do the next thing. Like it feels a little wasteful to me. And I feel like, saying this half ignorantly, I know, again, I feel like if they would have taken that product, spent another few months with it, really like, what do people actually want out of this? And just thought it through a little bit more and then put more backing behind it, I feel like we would be in a spot now where maybe we have yes, fewer products, but ones that are more relevant to us as guitar players, and ones that are that have more staying power. And not all of them are going to be hits. That will never happen. But a lot more of them would have a greater sales yield, more profit for the company potentially, rather than this quick fix, quick turnaround, satiate people and then move on to the next thing. And you know, it just, again, I like what you said, Mason, about this is going to sound bad on the customer. I don't intend it to, but customers will learn from the behavior that you set as a company. And so your words of training a customer to expect a new thing. Mm-hmm. I feel like we should train customers like we try and do on the podcast. We're all learning and training each other. We should train people to look for a great product that might not be the fanciest, flashiest new thing, but is going to be something that ultimately moves their guitar playing, their rig forward, and you know, benefits them because of it. Brian, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I have a zero manufacturer experience when it comes to this kind of stuff. But from a consumer side of it, just because, like, you know, I don't mind companies coming out with new stuff. Like, it's cool, it's fun. You know, it's like that. You know, it's the new kid in school type of thing. What's that new hot pedal that just came out? It's fun. I mean, it's fun to get something
that everybody wants to date.
Yes, the new kid Brian just said was the hot. Okay, all right.
Hey, I mean,
the new hot kid.
The new hot kid. But it's one of those things, like, you know, I think it's ironic. I think people are more excited about the thrill of a new pedal coming out, of them like waiting on it. And then, like, they're waiting for UPS and they're checking the tracking. You're waiting for that email to say shipped. And you're frustrated because you realized you bought it on a Saturday night, so it's not going to ship over the weekend. It's not going to ship till maybe Monday. So, like, I think that's exciting for some people. I hate it. I don't enjoy that part. Especially, like, the out for delivery all day and you're sitting at work, like where I work, like from home. But, like, you know, just that kind of stuff. But I think from a consumer side of it, it's cool to see new pedals come out when it's done right. I think companies that just push out stuff and then 6 months later push out the same pedal just in a newer version with like an extra feature, it's like, or a couple extra features, is like, come on, guys. Like, you could have taken the time. I would have waited 6 more months because I would have never known this existed. Or just like little stuff like that. I think it's like overlooked stuff, like, oh, you know, this has all of these features, why couldn't this be implemented? And I'm sure it's not that easy. I mean, especially MIDI, so much stuff. It's like when the Keeley Halo came out, so many people are like, why doesn't it have MIDI? Why doesn't it have MIDI? Like, and talking with, I mean, even talking with you, Grant, I mean, the MIDI Pogs mods that I have bought MIDI modules from you, and like implementing that kit is not easy. I mean, implementing into a system is not easy sometimes, and it depends on their budget and everything. So I'm all for it as long as the company does it right. If it's one of those, like, let's just get it out really basic and just like make some money, you know, it depends on the product. If it's one of those like kind of legacy, like, oh, get this type of tone thing, sure, whatever. But if it's like, you know, if it can do a bunch of different stuff or it's really a useful tool, I think it kind of just depends. So, yeah.
And I think a product recently, I know we've brought this up in the podcast, a product recently that has done this well, it feels well thought through, is the Tone King preamp. That thing,
yeah.
Like I keep going back to it because a buddy of mine has one. I didn't buy one myself, but I've spent some time with it, and I keep thinking, like, man, they thought that through. The effects loop for pedals and a separate one for the amp, the overdrive channel, and how you can do headphone outs and mono and stereo on different sections of the signal chain within the pedal, and it sounds awesome. And I just keep going back to that, like, I can't really fault this thing. Like, it is well thought out.
Yeah.
And they could have put less features in that, and I still would have loved it. But it seems like something where they were really, that's an example in my mind, a current one, where they had an idea and they really tried to understand the use cases.
Yeah.
And then implemented it. And I applaud that thing because so far it just seems like it has the potential, I'll say that, it has the potential to have some real staying power in this field. So I think, yeah, there definitely are I don't want this to come across as doom and gloom, because I feel like there are definitely companies that are taking their time. They're doing a great job.
Yeah.
And it just makes them stand out in my mind. Like that is a product I want to get behind and I want to back.
Yeah.
Even though I haven't bought it yet. So, I mean, I think there's definitely some great examples out there as well.
I think Chase Bliss was another example of a recent one with the Analogman thing that was really well done.
Oh yeah.
And I don't think that they're looking to just have something come and go quickly. You know, like they took a lot of time and investment in creating sort of an identity for that product. And I think that that's really one of the key differentiators, is that you're spending time to create an identity for the product that you're selling that is such where it becomes sort of a living, breathing organism in your product lineup that you couldn't just slash and burn in 90 days if things don't go as planned.
Yeah.
And I think that is, to me, is so respectable from sort of just a value standpoint for me, but also I think in terms of training your customers on expectations. And I think also sort of the health and wellness of our industry could stand to use more of that. Because again, I think sort of you could call it consumerism. I don't know that I necessarily want to make this as sort of a judgment call, as much as it sounds that way. I guess you could say it is a judgment call because of the way that I've presented this. But I think that companies in the long run are going to be better served by not doing I'm going to throw spaghetti at the wall or swing at the piñata and see what sticks and what's a hit. Because I think that ultimately I think it puts a lot of pressure on you to always be coming out with stuff. And the challenge with always having to come out with stuff is that there's going to be a lot of stuff that's not good, because you don't have to filter the same way you would if you're like, I have one product release this year, or I have two product releases this year, and they absolutely need to count. And so when I hear you say, Grant, that like it has to hit because like we don't have a backup for this, that to me is an approach that I really can get behind, and I'm more inspired by that. And I understand that my value on this doesn't reflect everybody in the industries, but I'm in agreement too that like when I look at what's on my pedalboard and the pedalboard that I'm building back there are very few things that have been out for more than, or I'd say there's very few pedals that are newer than 3 or 4 years old. I don't think there are any. I don't think there are any.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that something couldn't work in the context of which I'm using it. But the gold standard for whatever that product was, because we are sort of in a time in our industry where there aren't a lot of original products, and there haven't been for a long time. Mm-hmm. Like everything at this point in the analog domain is pretty it has to be derivative, because there's just not that many ways to create distortion or overdrive, especially when dealing with those sorts of devices. There's just not that many ways to do it, you know, and so you're seeing reinterpretations of things, and that doesn't mean that it doesn't sound different or doesn't sound great, because you can change a potentiometer even in an overdrive pedal and get a drastically different result just by that one thing. So there are component choices that affect how things sound, even if everything else is the same. And there tends to be a lack of charitability for people that begin to know a little bit about circuits, but don't really know a lot about circuits, that will chime in as authorities in these spaces like the Gear page and Facebook groups, et cetera. And they will relegate the products that they don't like to, it's just a this. But then you look at their pedal boards and they got a lot of it's just a this on there.
Yeah.
But they are, charitable to the companies that they like and hold them to a different standard than the ones that they don't. So I think that this is really interesting. I really hope that we see more of this and we see this investment in products. Like I really, really like the investment that you see that clearly Chase Bliss and Analogman made.
Well, they do like a documentary. Like
they made a documentary. They went to Japan.
Effort.
They spent tens of thousands of dollars making that. I can tell you that as somebody who's making a lot of videos. They spent tens of thousands of dollars making that. Undoubtedly.
A video they didn't have to make. Now they might see that differently. Like, well, we did have to make that video because this is the story, this is the product. The documentary is just as much part of the product as the physical unit is. Like, I don't want to misconstrue how they view that thing, but you can launch a great product without spending, let's say, $40,000 on a video.
Yeah.
You could have done it.
I don't think they spend that much. Maybe with like the travel and stuff like that, I would think it'd be in the $15,000 to $20,000 range. I'm going to say.
Sorry, I was saying $40,000 Canadian.
Oh.
That's like $5,000 American.
Well, I want to break for a moment to talk about a few of the sponsors that make this podcast possible every single week. We're going to do that. We're going to come back and get into the Notadumble. We're going to get into the new offerings from Walrus. You guys can take it away for our sponsors.
All right. So I want to tell you guys firstly about the Guitar Sanctuary. The Guitar Sanctuary is a music store. They are online. They are physically based in McKinney, Texas. And I hear good things about Texas, one of which is the Guitar Sanctuary is there. The other is once you're done at the Guitar Sanctuary, you could go to a great barbecue joint. Am I right, Brian? Is there any barbecue joints you'd recommend right beside the Guitar Sanctuary? I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah. Hutchins Barbecue would probably be the closest.
So go get your Analogman, Chase Bliss. Now I'm totally blanking. The Brothers AM at the Guitar Sanctuary. Then go spoil yourself with some barbecue. It's going to be a good day. Make a day of it. But the guitarsanctuary.com has a lot of the gear, if not all of the gear that we are going to be chatting about the show today. And so you can check them out. You can text in. You can chat to Brian there. He'll help you out with your gear questions and how does this integrate into my rig? What's stock looking like? Help me out with the electric guitars. They have it all at the guitarsanctuary.com. Go in person or give them a call or a text. I also want to let you guys know about Neural DSP, which we're probably going to chat about a little bit today as well, in the realm of kind of FOMO on boutique pedals and the Nauticlon, and how you can actually capture some of your favorite overdrive sounds and you can actually put them into your Quad Cortex and use them and recall them at will. You can do the same thing on the Nano Cortex, the smaller version, while capturing amps, pedals, whatever it may be. And you can also use their software suite, their kind of profiles, and you can put all of that on your Quad Cortex as well. They're kind of navigating, or they're kind of moving a lot of these profiles over to be compatible with the Quad Cortex. And if you guys like saving money, you can use the code Chairmen, CHAIRMEN, to get 30% off of any of their software that is 90 days or older, any of their amp suites or anything like that. There's some great sounding amp suites in there for you guys to check out and navigate over, or I keep saying navigate, migrate over to your Quad Cortex. So anything that's 90 days or older, you can save 30%, 70% away from free, as we like to say on the podcast. Lastly, I want to mention BTPA. I would say BTPA and Brad at BTPA is kind of like a household name here at Chairman of the Boards. Brad has helped all of us many, many, many times finish up pedalboard builds, whether it's getting bulk connectors, cable, custom looms or snakes, patch panels. If you need to finish off your rig, Brad at BTPA can help you out. And he is a Rolodex, a human Rolodex of part numbers and what is available, what's the best thing to use. And he will help you out with that rig. So check him out, btpa.com. Use the code DACHAIRS, DACHAIRS, for 10% off your order at btpa.com. Mason, I'll throw it back to you.
All righty. Well, so we've gotten a chance to talk a little bit about FOMO in the industry, which I think we can all acknowledge is a real thing. But the next thing is about JHS and their new DIY Notadumble pedal. And I'm sure that all of you have heard about it, especially all you FOMO folks who probably bought one. And it appears to be a Dumble overdrive special style overdrive. And with a selector switch, a slider switch, you can move over to a clean channel, which is ostensibly this boxylator Dumble. I think that they made two base versions of this. They also made solid state. I believe this one was solid state, like FET based. Sort of like an effects loop where it had a send and return on it and an input and an output, an input and an output. And you would use it basically as an impedance correction to amplifiers that were passive, just like what would be or amplifiers with a passive effects loop, like what you would find in a Dumble. And John Mayer had the box version of it, which was called the boxylator, which was like sort of like the pedal based version of a Dumbleator, and then had sent it to JHS at some point and had him recreate it in a more pedalboard friendly size. And so I think that they've recreated sort of the boost section of that, but not the effects loop section of that. And you have two knobs as it does on John Mayer's. And this was a little bit of a surprise to me because I've seen these units before and I've even repaired some of these units before. And typically it's more aligned with what you would see from like a company like Kleinulator, which makes a Dumble based solid state version. I'll see if I can bring it up here. Kleinulator. I'll put this up on screen for folks that want to look at it. And let's see. Let me know if you can see this. Here it is. So you can see here with the Kleinulator it has an input output send and return. You have a send volume, you have a return volume. And then you have a recovery, which I think is either some sort of like tone control or maybe another version of a makeup gain. And it's a very simple circuit, solid state, and takes 9 volts. And this is great to use on amplifiers that don't have an effects loop that is active and you get some tone loss. This is great to use. But you could also use this for pedals in a similar way. The thing that was really interesting to me about the JHS thing is it didn't have the effects loop, but he had said that the input was not actually a volume control, but it was instead a variable impedance control. And then the output was just the boost. And the interesting thing is I'm presuming that boost is at the end of the chain of effects that are in John Mayer's rig. Like it goes input, variable impedance control, send to the devices that are in the loop, and then return has the boost on the output. That can be really interesting because you could decide whether you wanted to load down the signal that was going into those devices to make it darker, potentially spongier, or if you wanted to make it really bright or unloaded sounding, you could increase. And I think I think he said, and I don't remember the numbers, but I feel like maybe it went down to like 100K and up to like 5 or 10 megs. So you had quite a range of impedances that you could select. And obviously it's not perfect because there's not like a detent and like specific offsets for different numbers.
Yeah.
But I thought that was really interesting. The other thing I think is really interesting is that you've seen in the JHS communities, like in Facebook groups, that people have done. The first thing I thought was, well, that switch should be on, or that slider should be on a foot switch, because it would be way cooler to be able to select that on the fly, to be able to toggle between the overdrive and the clean boost side.
Yep.
And so I've seen that there are people that have already done that mod.
No way. They put another foot switch in.
Yeah, because there's a space. Let me see if I can pull this up. So let's look at the not a Dumble.
I have it on my screen here. I'm just trying to see if I can see a gut shot somewhere, but there's only the full PCB.
Yeah, there. I did see.
Oh, there is a space.
So, yeah, so there's a logical space where I think the wrench, or something would break out.
Yep.
So if you look here, and I've got it up on, can you guys see it on my screen here?
Yeah.
So you've got this space right here where the wrench kind of breaks out.
Oh yeah.
And
wow.
Or this one breaks out too. But in any case, you have these sections where things break out, and then there's this sort of this obvious space next to where the foot switch is, where something else can go. The only problem is that it puts it like right in the logo,
the Notadumble logo.
Notadumble.
Yep.
So that's the only downside to it. And then I'll show you in the Facebook groups if I'm able to get to it. Let's see. We want to look for JHS. I think I'm in one of these groups. The groups.
And as Mason's bringing this up, as a reminder, we do have a Chairmen of the Boards Facebook group where you can ask pedalboard questions, show your rig. So check us out on Facebook as well.
Oh yeah, this is interesting. I'm not sure
we're on
who
the
posted.
Facebook group, JHS.
Yeah. Not sure who posted that one, but I've repaired one of these before. Let's see. There was one where somebody had posted all the mods.
All the mods.
Well, they didn't show how to do it, but
it wouldn't be difficult.
No, it would be really simple. And actually, I don't think it would be that hard to add the effects loop if you wanted to do that. If you really wanted to make it exactly how the mayor one is, I think you could do it. Yeah, this guy did it. He even added a third switch.
Oh, wow.
So I'm guessing that he cut the PCB. He must have to create and just had the jacks go to that section of the circuit board or cut traces so that he could make that space, because I'm pretty sure that would have been in the way
in the board. Yeah,
but yeah, so somebody did it.
What's the price on that pedal again? Is it?
I think it's 119.
It's on my website. It's 170 Canadian because I'm up north. Canadian. So 119 American sounds about right. It's not bad.
So anyway,
I think it's a great. I mean, the whole concept of the whole it's diving into that part of the market, the DIY, and it's so fun. I mean, I gotta hand it to JHS. They've always done so well with marketing this kind of stuff. It's like involving their kids and like having like their marketing team have their kids involved, and like they're showing you just how stupid simple it is, that it makes it fun. I would get one if it was my type of pedal, but it's not my sound, so I'm not.
Brian's allergic to Dumbles.
Yeah, I am allergic. So it's
Dumbles
just
in TS9s, right?
Don't even get him near him.
Dumbles, TS9s,
break out in hives.
Yeah, I'm not for him.
Brian creates his own gain.
I do, which is ironic because I love the morning. I love the morning.
In his fingers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Gain is in the fingers, as they say.
Gain is in the fingers, dotted eighth notes in the fingers, fuzz is in the fingers.
It's a real treat to see him play.
Yeah. No pain, no gain.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I think it's such a cool concept. I think it's fun. I think it's just another fun take on getting a pedal. I've seen people paint the enclosures. Obviously, we've seen people mod the enclosures. So it's just such. I mean, I logistically don't know like the business side of it, but it just seems like such a fun. And it was smart.
It's a smart
that
business
they
move.
had so many
it's-
available because the problem was with the Notadumble is that they only had a couple thousand and then they were back ordered for so long. I felt so bad because they were like posting updates about if you're this order number, then yours will be shipping this. And like
I think
people-
that's brilliant. I think that's brilliant.
it's I feel like it's a double-edged sword because like then you get the guys that buy it first off, but they're gonna go turn around and try flipping it on Reverb. Crazy. I mean, whatever.
But the other thing it doesn't
affect him.
It doesn't. No, it doesn't affect him.
I think they were I don't know, maybe sold 30,000 Notadumbles in the first 6 months, something like that. That could be wrong, but I remember seeing them post like batches of 25,000.
Yes.
So huge numbers. But talking about what we've already covered a little bit in this episode of staying power, drawing that release out as long as possible. Even if they could build them quicker, they are showing people repeatedly, they are training their customers. This is in demand for a long period of time. Mm-hmm. We can't keep up with it. And then as a consumer, and I thought this myself, as a consumer, like, what am I missing out that everyone else seems to get? I got to get this thing. And it just drives more sales of the unit, and I think, I think it's great. And it's so cool to have people involved in the process and to get, I think about, future guitar players or people just getting into it. Like, I built a pedal, even though that's a bit of a half truth. They are absolutely getting involved in the process of putting this thing together. You get pride in the product. I had a hand in building and testing that. And, I just think it's great on so many levels, more than just the pedal itself. It's pretty cool.
No, I think it's fun.
And from a business standpoint, I think it's pretty smart because this is only available direct.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about ordinarily, you would be selling this to a dealer. You would be, if this were a product that were part of his production product line, he would be selling it to a dealer. I suspect somewhere around the price that he's selling it, $119, and then this product would sell for $250, in the marketplace. And basically what he's doing is instead of selling it to the dealer, the average dealer at that price, he's instead selling it directly to the customer. So like his manufacturing costs don't change in terms of, and if anything, they're slightly less because he doesn't have to do the full assembly. I think there's still quite a bit of assembly involved here because in essence, he still has to package the enclosure. He still has to make all the PC board level stuff. And it's not really it is a DIY kit, but it's very limited. It's not like
it's the last 5 minutes of the build.
Yeah. It's not like when you used to buy one of those BYOC build your own clone kits where you just get a circuit board that's unpopulated and you have to start from like ground zero. Yeah. It is not that. It is definitely like, the fact that you can assemble it all with what's there, like that's great. But I think that it allows them, to have a little bit higher quality, in terms of the investment. And I think the whole like IKEA branding thing is brilliant. Yeah. I also think though, like I see other brands that I've talked to that said, oh, well, we could just be doing the same thing. And I'm like, no, you can't, because he has spent years, 6 or 7 years, maybe more, leading to the ability to be able to do this. Like when before JHS really started the JHS show and started developing customers by way of these amazing presentations about the history of certain pedals and certain companies and brands, I don't think it would be possible. But he's created those customers now where he can do something like this. I don't think another company could just walk into a similar situation and be able to recreate the same success that he has. I think it's he's the X factor with his marketing team and Nick and his, I think his sister is Belle, who's
She does all the
like,
newscasts. She's great.
And then I think their father also works there as one of like there's like a whole the family of folks that work there.
That's so fun.
But in any case, it's really interesting to kind of just see the way that they've been able to do this. And I think that cutting out the dealers give them, you know, a much better margin. I still think that these are costing, you know, 60 to $80 probably to do. I'm thinking maybe a little less because they don't have to do the assembly, and like man hours in pedal terms are the most expensive part. Handwork is the most expensive part of any individual component of putting a pedal together. Things that can be done through a machine, like the population of the boards and stuff like that, that is far less expensive. But you know, they've figured it out, and I think that they're only going to get better, and we're going to see more of these. And I think, again, from a business standpoint, I think it's really smart. And I remember there was that guy that kind of tried to do like a little takedown of them, you know, last year or something like that, you know, saying that they've made all this money and you know that
his margins are thinner than I would have the guts to run them at.
And I think that, you know, you can see that they offer sort of variety of things. Like I know on those 3 Series pedals, there's got to be almost no margin in those at all, because there's so little. In fact, I don't know how many of those, the tariffs at this point in time when this is recorded have been rolled back to a lesser amount, not the amount that they had been before this all happened. To be able to maintain that price point on the 3 Series, I'm not sure how they're going to do it unless things go back to fully normal. Yeah, I don't think they're making much on those. They're selling a lot, but I think the margin is low. I think on something like the Notaclon or Notadumble, I think that they have a lot more margin to deal with, especially since they're going directly to customer, and putting some of the onus on assembly on the customer.
Yeah,
I think it's a smart play, and I think that offering something like this with the heritage of the John Mayer thing, I think is really smart. I haven't played it, so I don't really know, you know, about sort of the how aligned it is with the Dumble. But the truth of the matter is, as it relates to overdrive pedals that do Dumble things, and I'm speaking as somebody who makes it, we can do everything right, and you're still never going to be able to make a clean amp or whatever sound like a Dumble. You're just not. There's just too many variables that we can't recreate, you know, and because the idea in I'm sorry to get in the weeds here, but I think this is an important distinction to make. Any amp in a box pedal, whether it's a Vox, whether it's a Marshall, whether it's a Dumble, you're taking a preamp and running it into another preamp and power amp. And although you could make an argument that most Dumble overdrive amplifiers are cascaded gain stages, it's not the same as a solid state preamp into, you know, a tube preamp and all that. So like it's just you can't recreate the signal path to even get you to the exact place that the amplifier would do. And you're not dealing with the voltages of that. It's just a different thing. So, you know, if you really want the Dumble sound, the closest you're going to get is to buy a Dumble style amplifier. That's going to be way closer than a pedal is going to be. And pedals can kind of give you some of the semblance. But honestly, I'll say this. I think so much of what people hear when they hear Dumble, or they think they're hearing Dumble, is really phrasing of the most popular players in the way that they choose notes and they attack notes and they have patience on certain things. So if you put on a tube screamer into a Fender amplifier and you played Robin Ford style licks, I can guarantee you that people are going to say, that really sounds like a Dumble. Because so much of the way that we understand that sound is through the phrasing of those key players that were most sort of emblematic of the amp. I don't think that if you were playing rock music using a Dumble style pedal, that people are going to identify it as that. And I'll give this as an example. This isn't a slam on Pete Thorne, but Pete Thorne has a very specific style that he plays. And when he demos a Dumble style pedal, I don't think it sounds like a Dumble because he's not really playing it in the context that we would hear Dumbles. Because most of the Dumble players weren't rock guys. They weren't Van Halen guys like he is. Like in his heart, he is a Van Halen disciple that is a wonderful, talented rock and roll player. He's not playing Larry Carlton and Robin Ford licks. And so it kind of gets a little divorced from that sound. And so it's hard to sort of place it in respective terms to something that is doing the quote unquote Dumble thing.
Nice. I like that thought.
I agree.
Context
and
is
he's
important.
Canadian. And he's Canadian.
He is.
So Grant can
Even
respect
better.
him on that metric.
Yep. I respect all guitar players, but even more so if
When
they
they're
are fellow flannel warriors. I'm right there
Flannel
with them.
warriors. Any other thoughts on the Notaclon before we move on to Walrus?
No, I think that was great. I think it's clear that we're all fans here, and I think it's easy to look at this product and think, oh, it's just parts in a box. There's a lot that goes into making something like this.
Yeah, really
And
cool. I think it's really cool.
It's great. Yeah.
Yeah, same.
Big fan.
I agree.
Yeah, let's chat Walrus.
Yeah, I ought to turn this one over to Brian because he I think is the most experienced with their stuff. But I saw it come up and I was like, wow, this is really cool. They have these new line isolators, miniature ones, updates to the stereo ones, power supplies. Brian, tell us what's new from Walrus.
Yeah.
And how it could benefit us all.
Well, I mean, they even this is even what a month or so ago as they released their clock, their MIDI clock too. So like they've been coming out with all these
So much stuff.
So much stuff. It's been really cool. They've reached out to me about some other stuff, which is really exciting. It looks really cool. So we'll see. They definitely have a lot. That's the thing that I learned about them is that they have a lot of different things. They're not fixated on one. So the new little line isolators was cool. With it being a mono, it's ironic though. Is someone, they post about it, and then someone immediately says, "Well, why can't I have two XLR outs on that mini line isolator?" And they're like, "I mean, you could use the Canvas, the stereo DI, because that you can use that too." So, they have options for everyone. I think the boards, like the enclosure size. What is that? What is that enclosure size? It's like
for the little tiny
It's like a
guy?
90. Is it an A? 1598.
I don't know.
It's like your remote.
I'm
size.
confused. I'm confused by all those Canadian terms that Hammond uses.
Hammond.
The 1590 EH. The 1590
The BBK. I just know that means black.
Yeah.
Yes, BBK. Yeah. So I mean, they have a lot of really cool stuff. They added I haven't had their Canvas DI with the summing and everything on it because I have a long line, and I love that. So I think it's just another really cool option. It's something that they listen to people, they listen to their consumer, and they did it. Let's just be honest. Like, there were so many people that are like, "Oh, I wish I had summing on the XLR outs. I wish I had this." And they're like, "Well, it has summing, but it's only on the 1/4 inch outs, which if you're running direct, that doesn't help you." So I think that was a really smart move on their end, is to go, okay, let's note that and do it. So, it's not a monumental, massive update, but I think for the consumer, especially because there's a lot of people that only have so much space, and that size enclosure just works really well. As far as for their power supply, they sent me, it's the HP Plus. If you go on their social media, you can see it, but it's the size, it's the size of their Canvas 15 power supply. And I'm gonna pull it up. It's ironic enough as I'm building a Axe Effects rack for myself right now for fun. Just as I acquired an Axe Effects 3, so I've been learning that. So
You acquired it
in a rack. I acquired it in a trade, and it's
not in a merger and acquisition.
pretty felt like it. It was one of those things that I haven't had much experience on the Axe stuff, so I really wanted to, because I had some cool opportunities for some teching stuff. So I have that, but I have the 15 inside the rack to actually power, because it has the 3 amp variable voltage on it and it's super thin. I could have done like a DC7 or something, but I needed a bunch of milliamp output to actually power my Sennheiser wireless in-ear monitor and wireless guitar system. So like I'll post about it soon, but like that unit is powering both of those, and it's also powering the RJM Smart Box, which is sending 7-pin phantom power down to a GT controller. So like it's doing a lot of stuff, and it's such a small unit, and I still have all these. I don't even know, honestly. It's been in the back of the rack that I forgot how many power. I'm looking it up right now. But it's I think it's cool because I'm doing a bunch of stuff with it. I can't see it. But um having the USB-C is really cool too, because I'm running my computer up on top. So I actually have my computer being powered through the USB-C. So I don't have to have an extra hub. I just think it's a really cool multi-function. I think I'm using it more than probably, they were expecting. But yeah, I'm powering a bunch of stuff off of it. It's really quiet. Still have extra power if I really decided to throw a pedal in the top or something. But yeah, it's all around just, I think it's a really cool idea, and it's really small. You have to get fancy with the brick putting it in place, but in a rack it's kind of easy. On a pedal board it can get a little tricky. But yeah, it's I think of their line of series of Canvas power supplies, it's been really fun.
That's great.
Yeah, really quiet.
I do like how they come out with some probably more so than any other power supply that I can think of. They do come out with the ultra high current outlets.
Yes.
And multiples, which depending on who you are could be really handy or overkill. But to have that, to know that it's out there, to know that you have that as an option if you run into a rig that really needs it, I think is awesome. I've never heard of someone powering their computer off of a pedal board power supply. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I tested it last night. I was really nervous I was going to get a buzz because I'm running a bunch of, I'm going to do a whole video on it. It's very, I neglect my guitar stuff myself, like my personal gear stuff. I just don't spend a lot of time. I have a little nano board. I have a quad cortex board. And it was just like, you know what? This would be fun. And I have been building it on my kitchen table in my dining room. Like when my
that you got a shop, right?
I don't want to do it in my shop. I think that's the funniest thing about it is I enjoy the kitchen table kind of messiness. Yeah, I could do it out here.
Your wife probably enjoys it as well, right?
Well, she's been out of town this whole week.
Oh,
so
perfect.
I've been doing it the whole week. She's been out of town, but for me, it's just been like it just takes me back to when I started doing this kind of stuff. Why I like doing it, and it was fun. I think when I start doing it in here, it feels more like work. But yeah, so getting a HP 15 or plus or whatever they're calling it is cool, because if you're using like say you're using 2 quad cortexes and you have them in a rack, because we're seeing all these redundant quad cortex racks and stuff right now, and you have pedals, you could get a DC7, you could get an extension, you could get a Chalks, you could do all these things. This unit, and this is no way just like, they're not sponsoring this or anything. It's just really cool because you can get this one unit. It could power up to 3 quad cortexes and additional pedals. And you still have output to go connect to something else if you needed to add, extra power, and you have the USB-C. So I think it was just a really cool design. They also added mounting screws on the bottom side. I remember I was bugging you for a while with the long line to like do mounting bolts.
Yeah, we added them in.
Which you added them in. So thank you. I literally just had a long line yesterday and I flipped it over. I was like, oh, hey, the screws. So it's just, it's cool to see that they're absorbing, they're seeing what's out there, they're asking questions, and then they're putting out some really cool stuff. So I think it's not for everyone, but I think having that variable voltage 3 amp is a lot. Multiples.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's
my spiel.
Well, I am I'm impressed too. I'm impressed with the speed with which they can respond, because I think that that's like a thing that sometimes if a company is sort of too big, the time that sort of that reaches the top can be fairly elongated. And it feels like Walrus is always making adjustments, small incremental adjustments that occur in fairly short order in sort of the time span of guitar pedal world. So I think that that's something that is impressive, and from a customer standpoint kind of tells me that they're well managed, they're the right size, and that they are nimble enough as a company to be able to listen and pivot as needed to make products better. And I think that that's a really important thing.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I think that is. Sorry, go ahead, Brian. Before I cut you off and wrap us up.
No, I was good. I was just agreeing with you. That's all.
Well, on that note of agreeability, we'd love to hear from you on your thoughts as it relates to Pedal FOMO, the Notadumble, the Walrus audio offerings. If there are other new offerings that perhaps we missed that maybe we can touch on in a different show, those are all things we'd love to hear from you about. You can join us over on our Facebook group, the Chairmen of the Boards Facebook group. It is a growing community of folks that want to talk about Pedalboard related topics, questions and concerns. We're there to help you answer those questions, as well as folks from the community that are steeped in our methodology around building pedal boards that we've been talking about now for over 100 and how many episodes?
51, 52.
151 episodes. They are steeped in the methodology of 150 plus episodes. So please do join us there. That will be in the show notes and in the description. If you're on YouTube, please make sure that you are subscribed, hitting the bell icon. I know everybody says that, but it is free. It doesn't cost you a dime to do that. And it will keep you up to date on all the new stuff that we're doing. You can subscribe to us over on your favorite podcast app and write us a review. We really appreciate that. We don't need a 5-star review. We just need an honest review. That will help other people like you find us if you are in fact interested in liking the content that we're putting out. Until next week, we will see you a little further down the road to Tone Town.
Bye, guys.
See you guys.